Looking for a steady hand with a pickaxe ready.
Combatants needed for a perilous task. Reflecting. Reflecting. A Daedric presence has been detected within the radius. Threats include several creatures from the location Evergloam, including one called Wraith of Crows. Current patrol factotums are unable to defeat this threat. The Wraith of Crows can be found within a portal to Evergloam, located in Exarch's Egress. Take precautions before entering, such as in... Do you wish to learn more about your current task? Further specification is needed. What about your current contract do you wish to learn more about?
Hey, you. Working with Brengelin. Come this way. I overheard you talking to Bren about the root liquor, and I had to intervene before you took off on some wild guar chase.
This year, he'll select me for sure. I can feel the gears rotating in my direction. Welcome, friend. Come, join our celebration on this glorious and special day. Today is the day that Lector Naril declares a new apprentice. I've improved my botanical knowledge and skills considerably since the selection day last year. I hope he sees how much I can help him in his work. The Everwound Wellspring, a wondrous oasis in this mechanical desert. Sotha Seal created the place, but the Lector made plants grow in the metallic soil. Once every year, he distributes food and chooses an apprentice. You should come with me and see. In the past, the wellspring was accessible to everyone. Lector Narl sealed the place and started the tradition of the annual harvest and apprentice selection. Oh no, so many hopefuls. The gears just have to align in my favor. They have to.
Faithful of Sotha Seal, you may enter to collect this year's harvest in a moment, but first, I shall name my new apprentice. Sherazar, the Everwound Wellspring welcomes you as its new apprentice. The rest of you, come in and claim your portion of the harvest.
Thank the great gear. Let's go inside.
Factotums will continue to gather the harvest and bring the containers here. In the meantime, use the lift and come see our oasis. I always share a few words of advice with the hopefuls that weren't selected before I take the new apprentice under my wing. The Everwound Wellspring provides excellent opportunities for the novice apostles. You must be one of the new arrivals I've heard so much about. Everything in the Clockwork City, the soil, the flora, the fauna, it's all composed of gears and pistons and metal. It's like that everywhere. Everywhere, that is, except here. Because Sotha Seal set the wellspring in this metallic desert and blessed it with a reservoir of water. An exceedingly rare thing in the Clockwork City. He planned to create an oasis, but moved on to other projects before the task was done. We had water and a pressing need. It didn't take me long to figure out how to make actual living plants grow in this artificial soil. Now, save your questions and let me show you some of the wonders of the Everwound Wellspring. Come, everyone! Follow me into the viewing garden. My friends, the wellspring enjoyed a bountiful harvest. Let me show you how we accomplish our miracles. Simulated sunlight allows our trees to produce fruit sweeter than the orchards of Vardenfell. These pipes carry an alchemical solution that nourishes our plants. Factotums harvest the plants and pack them in special containers to keep them fresh before we distribute them to Clockwork City. We take clippings from the most robust plants to produce stronger varieties. Someday, we'll be able to grow plants outside these walls. Every season, we share our bounty and select a new apprentice from among the novice apostles. By the way, where did my new apprentice wander off to? My new apprentice, Sherazar. Where did she disappear to? Oh, she's off to a bad start. A very bad start. And have 2 novices wandering around the oasis unsupervised? Very well. Go find Sherazar and return to me with all due haste. Quickly now. The work of the Wellspring can't wait for an idle apprentice. That's a complicated subject, and one better left to the actual apprentices. Suffice it to say that the process involves water treated with alchemical nutrients and other solutions, as well as our simulated sunlight. That would require an even more complicated answer. Suffice it to say that we use lenses, crystals, and a unique power source to create life-giving light similar to Nern's sun. But without the apprentices, none of this would be possible. My program provides an opportunity to work outside the Clockwork Basilica, lets them try their hand at something different. Besides, keeping the Wellspring going requires a lot of bodies. You'd be surprised at what's required to make my plants grow. That's a complicated subject, and one better left to the actual apprentices. Suffice it to say that the process involves water treated with alchemical nutrients and other solutions, as well as our simulated sunlight. That would require an even more complicated...
This was supposed to be a special day, but it turned out all wrong. There's something not right with this oasis. Sometimes a gear slips or a cylinder throws a piston. This place reminds me of that. Specifically, I saw my old friend Shirhari down one of the corridors. When I tried to go talk to her, the factotums blocked my path. They drove me off. That's the question, isn't it? And it's the reason I have a bad feeling all of a sudden. Why restrict where an apprentice can go? And why refuse to let me talk to Shirhari? It makes no sense. No, I'd rather speak to Shirhari. I know her. I trust her. Lector Naril? He's still a stranger to me. Will you help me get past the factotum so I can talk to my old friend?
Sherazar. Ah, this one purrs at the sight of you.
It's so good to see you too, Shirhari.
You shouldn't wander the wellspring unsupervised. It's dangerous. The factotums don't respond well to visitors they haven't been formulated to recognize. And the fabricants, they're just mean. A new apprentice? Really? But what does Shirhari know of such things? This one works in the dark and grows fungi, molds, and mosses. The Lector keeps me too busy for other concerns. Shirhari doubts there's anything sinister going on, so the seal blessed the wellspring with water, and Lector Naril's alchemical solutions make it possible to grow plants. It's good to see Sherizar, though. We could use the help. Apprentice? Sherizar is the first new apprentice to enter the wellspring in years. The Lector stopped selecting apprentices after poor Gathal's accident. At least, that's how this one understands things. I suppose Idrono might know differently. Idrono works with Shihari. He attempts to grow non-fungal plant life in harsh conditions. Since you're going to speak to him, could you bring along some of my mushrooms? But not the poisonous ones. He hates those. Idrono will be grateful for the fungi samples, even if he seems agitated. He gets that way during the harvest. Make sure to bring him safe ones, though. My notes can help you identify the various types we grow. No. Only the Lector can do such things. But perhaps this one has the next best thing. My plaque of safe passage. As long as you carry it, the factotums should leave you alone. Take it. It won't stop fabricants, however, so be wary of those beasts. Shirhari will be fine. There is much to do right here, and the factotums are formulated to recognize me. The plaque is a precaution, for the most part. This one will get another one before the next work cycle begins.
Idling. Conducting piston check. Awareness integrity stabilized. In progress.
New apprentice, if you can hear my voice, step to the nearest speaking tube this instant. This is Lecter Naril talking to you through this speaking tube. I assume that you and Sherazar have been exploring the wellspring. We've built something impressive here, don't you think? Other apprentices? Oh, you mean Sherazar's predecessors, the ones selected during the past few harvests. About them, well, they've been dealing with a very special experiment. Utterly secret, you understand? Certainly. Just as soon as you report to me. I must complete Sherazar's orientation and training. Some parts of the wellspring can be extremely dangerous. I'll expect you back in the viewing garden before 3 gears click into place.
A new apprentice? How curious. And are those samples of Shirahari's mushrooms? Excellent. I've been anxious to taste the new harvest. Texture similar to guar hide. Flavor equivalent to wet moss. Not what I hoped for. Interesting question. As far as I know, no new apprentices have entered the wellspring since Garthel's accident. But I have a bigger concern. At least Shirahari can grow mushrooms. My plants refuse to live no matter what I do. Of course, Lecter Narl tasked each of us with a different experiment. I'm attempting to grow plants without the benefit of the simulated sunlight. I haven't had any success so far, but someone has to tackle the difficult experiments, I suppose. Lecter Narl developed it using techniques he still refuses to share. The simulated sunlight provides nourishing energy that makes most of the plants we grow thrive. Not my plants, mind you. Oh, no, that would ruin the experiment. Otoan's been with Lecter Narl the longest. She might know something more. You'll need to cross my garden to reach her. Just watch out for the blasted fabricants. They keep eating my plants and clogging up the gears. I just don't understand why my plants won't grow while Shihari and Otoan have no trouble making things bloom. It's an absolute annoyance. And so are those fabricants. Feel free to smash them to bits on your way through the garden. What's to tell? Garthal died. Happened in Lecter Narl's private workshop. We're not allowed in there anymore. Now let me think. I need to figure out how to make my plants do something. Anything other than wither and die.
If you can hear my voice, step to the nearest speaking tube this instant.
Combat subroutine.
This is Lecter Naril talking to you through this speaking tube. I had such high hopes for you, Sherazar. Why do you defy me? I see. And does this have to do with the endeavors of the Wellspring? I suppose I can't fault you for your initiative and willingness to get right to work. I just wish you would have waited before you presented yourselves to my other apprentices. Prohibited? That's a harsh word. No, we don't have any restrictions in the Wellspring. But Sherazar will have a better understanding of how things work here once she returns to me and completes her orientation and training. Did he? My workshop isn't restricted, it's just private. You must see the necessity for a space of my own. No matter. Finish your task and we can discuss this in more detail. I have impressive plans for you and my new apprentice.
Interruptions are counterproductive. The 7th law of gears teaches us that. Well, since you've already distracted me, you might as well tell me what you want. Idrono. His experiment was doomed from the beginning. You can't grow plants without a source of nourishing light. My plants thrive thanks to the use of Lecter Narrow's simulated sunlight. But I wasn't informed we were getting new apprentices. That was the practice until Gathal died. Then the Lector sealed his private workshop and gave us these experiments to conduct while he perfected his simulated sunlight. It makes our annual harvest possible. If there were other apprentices, I'd know. I suppose Lector Naril could have more apprentices toiling in his private workshop. He keeps numerous secrets, so what's a few more? You can enter the workshop through the busted vent over there. Ignorance of his rules might grant you some leeway. Lector Naril's private workshop is restricted, but I don't expect you to find anything. If he catches you snooping around, feign ignorance and beg forgiveness. What's the worst he could do? I suppose he could turn you into plant food. Lector Naril is one of the most respected clockwork apostles currently operating within Lord Set's great experiment. Every novice wants to become his apprentice, and every sentient in the Brass Fortress hopes to partake of his bountiful harvests. That's a long and complicated tale. The short form is that he was one of Sotha Seal's most trusted warrior scholars. When our great master abandoned the wellspring for other endeavors, Naril stepped in to fill the gap. He's been here ever since. An unfortunate factotum accident happens occasionally. Sometimes the poor contraptions just get overheated and explode. That's why I prefer to work at a significant distance from the machines. Say, a good 30 paces or thereabouts.
I'm very disappointed, Sherazar. Shirhari's lack of safe passage has been rendered inoperable. Now, return to me immediately.
All functions are working as intended.
Lector Naril's a clockwork apostle. He must keep meticulous notes. We need to examine them. That's the story of how the Everwound Wellspring was created. Lector Naril picked up where Sotha Seal left off. The early experiments failed, even though Lector Naril perfected his alchemical solution. I wonder how they solved the problem. I never knew what went into making the wellspring work. I wonder how they finally got the simulated sunlight to nourish the plants. The source of the simulated sunlight is the life force of the missing apprentices? That's horrible. We need to see what's inside Naril's private workshop. That machine! Is that the inductor? The apprentices! It sucked the life out of them! This is the Lector's simulated sunlight inductor. And just as we read in his notes, he's using the life force of the most recent apprentices to power the device. Sotha Seal would never approve of this. Never in a million clicks of the Great Gear. No. If we leave, Lector Narul will just use Shirhari or one of the others. We have to do something. We have to stop this madness. People shouldn't be turned into plant food. At least not while they're still healthy and vibrant. It's not natural.
So now you know the secret of the wellspring. You see your role in our grand plan. Time is short. The life force of the previous apprentices is nearly depleted.
Life force can feed thousands! You lash out because you fail to grasp the importance of what I do.
There's nothing to be done for these poor apprentices. The inductor has drained every drop of life from their bodies. But what of Lector Naril? He cloaks his evil in good intentions. The Lector lied. He tricked the apprentices and killed them. But the machine does allow the plants to grow and provides food for the Clockwork City. I wonder, what if someone willingly sacrificed themselves to feed the people? You're right. The sacrifice is too great. Lector Naril turned Sotha Seal's dream into a nightmare. I'll work with the remaining apprentices. Together, we'll find another way for the Everwound Wellspring to help the Clockwork City.
How horrible! Those apostles, all dead?
Not just dead. Drained of life to create the simulated sunlight.
Still, it's an amazing device. Lector Naril's a true genius.
A genius? Look at this. Naril's insane.
Naril's dead, and this work is an affront to Lord Set and everything he's taught us.
I won't argue that point, but you can't deny that Naril accomplished what the Clockwork Mage never quite got around to doing.
This one rejects that path. A life is worth more than a harvest. More than 100 harvests.
This isn't our decision to make. We should go before the council.
No, there's no decision to make. I'm shutting this horrid contraption down right now.
Simulated sunlight.
We're the apprentices of the Everwound Wellspring. We'll figure out a way to save the plants.
You really think so? This one hopes that we're up to such a task.
We're Clockwork Apostles. Of course we can do this. Now, let's get to work.
I can no longer detect a danger. Verified. The Daedric incursions have been dealt with.
Hey, you. Working with Brenglin. Come this way.
I have many functions to help you with your purchases.
I overheard you talking to Bren about the root liquor, and I had to intervene before you took off on some wild guar chase. Oh, I know you won't. That rare stock was a batch of counterfeit hooch I was trying to pass off on a wealthy mark, but she caught wise. When Bren got into it, I didn't have the heart to tell him it wasn't the real thing. I only made one batch. Suppose I could, but I based it off stuff that isn't easily come by. A part of the mix is Wellspring hooch, and I have on good authority that some students of the catalog of rote duplication keep a stash. Off limits, but that's not the hard part. Well, the other main ingredient can't be found in Clockwork City. Stuff was stolen from the private reserve of some silk shirt in Port Hunding. Even if you could get out of this ticking prison, you'd have to smuggle a crate of the stuff back here. I'll believe you when I see it. If you do pull it off, meet me in Slagtown.
Someone stop that lawbreaker! Ballers and garters, call the guards! You stay right there, Swit.
The Clockwork City welcomes you.
I must finish this.
You, find the little thing we talked about? Phew, you really are something. How'd you wind up in a dump like this? Give me a minute to cut this. Little boiler coolant gives it some bite. And there. Genuine Elden root liquor. Promise you'll keep this between us? I like Bren too much to break his heart. He tries so hard to keep us in good spirits. I'll get out of here before you give it to him.
Hello again, friend. Interest you in a rust crumble cake? It's not so bad once you get past the taste. Texture's nice. This is incredible. Where did you find it? I hope it wasn't too much trouble. Promise I'll stretch this bottle long as it'll last, now that I know better. Now that I got the base for a marinade, it'd be nice to have something to use it on. I'm afraid I used the last of the meat in our larder on that misbegotten stew. Well, that'd be great, but it'll be dangerous. Fabricated critters out in the wild are just as mean as the real thing. Real tender around the flanks, though. Maybe because the machine bits are doing all the work. About a dozen ought to last us a while. One more thing, a special request. Tuba B loved Nixound meat before she wound up here. Brethe Rudarum raises the best you can find, but I can't afford his prices. I'd really like to impress her, and I know where he keeps his stash. You really are the best. Brethe Ru keeps his fresh meat in an airtight trunk at his stables until he's ready to either cook it or preserve it. If he just nick a little, he does well for himself, probably won't even miss it. Oh, well, I mean, you could, sure. It's just, I could never pay you back for something like that. Just one cut costs more than I'll even have in my life down here. Everybody down here is special to me. We're all we've got. But I do guess I got a soft spot for her. She's never once complained about my cooking. Even when I know it's eye-wateringly bad, it's always, thank you, and a scratch behind the ears. Only that they're probably more dangerous than your average beastie, but I'd be pretty fearless about what I'd try to take a bite out of if I had metal teeth too. Be careful. I'd feel terrible if you got hurt on account of me.
These Nix hounds may be part machine, but they're all animal at heart. I care for them the best I can and love them while they're living, but even I have to put food on the table. If I do, it's mostly a coincidence. They're hand-raised, mostly just for my own needs, but I'll sell off some surplus now and again. Takes a lot of effort, so I don't part with it cheap. I can fetch some from my larder, if it's worth it to you. You'll never find meat more mercifully raised, I'll promise you that. Might put this toward new bedding for Twitchy and Hopper. Take care now.
Woohoo! shouldn't have let Varia go in there alone. When a Clockwork Apostle discovers an unexplainable phenomenon, it can be a moment of unbounded joy or utter terror. That strange portal over there definitely falls into the second category. Portals aren't a common occurrence in the Clockwork City. When Acolyte Varia and I approached to investigate, I had a sudden urge to leap inside. I was able to resist its pull, but Varia stepped through the portal and hasn't returned. I need to make sure no one else wanders into the portal. But maybe you could go in and find Acolyte Varia. This perception tabulator automatically records whatever you experience and should be able to locate my associate. Take it and use it well. Step into the portal when you're ready. The perception tabulator will locate Varia and lead you back to Clockwork City after you complete your investigation. I'll study the phenomenon from out here and make sure no one else enters the portal. Mysterious? I would say it falls more into the suspicious category, what with the fact that it tried to lure me inside. Anyway, we were patrolling this quadrant of the radius, and when I noticed the portal out of the corner of my eye. That's just one of the technological instruments used by the Clockwork Apostles to conduct research and perform experiments throughout the Clockwork City. I'm sure its recording capabilities will work splendidly in wherever that portal leads to. You doubt my credentials? I have served as a scholar and priest of Sotha Seal for a long time. The temporal currents flow somewhat more haphazardly here than they do in Tamriel. We can discuss this more after you find Varia. Acolyte Varia can be rash, but she's as devoted to the Clockwork City as I am. I can't say if she was compelled by the same impulse that assaulted me, or if she truly wanted to see what was on the other side. You must find her, please.
The Great Gear turns in my favor for a change. You have a perception tabulator. Did Adjunct Darrow send you to find me? Of course he did. Listen carefully, and there might still be time to realign this befouled contraption. That should be the least of your concerns. If you don't do exactly what I tell you, you'll end up like me. Then who will protect the Clockwork City from this Oblivion infestation? You need to destroy the Shadow Array. Some foul device that Night Sister Chimera uses to lure people into the Shadow Cleft and bind them to these scarecrows. If you can destroy it, we'll be set free. Without the Shadow Array, Nocturnal's plans will be set back or even foiled completely. Not so loud. Nocturnal has ears everywhere. She's one of the Daedric princes. They aren't supposed to be able to breach the Clockwork City's defenses, but nothing works properly anymore. Hurry! You must destroy the shadow array!
It feels like I've been protecting this field for hundreds of years. But I'm certain I just entered this realm a day or so ago. What an odd question. I spotted a portal that should not have been there, and I entered it to see where it led. I determined that this shadow cleft is part of the Evergloam. How I wound up trapped... Feels like what an odd question. I spotted a... You've never heard of the Evergloam? It's the Oblivion realm that belongs to Nocturnal, the Night Mistress. I'm sure this shadow cleft represents some sort of attack on the Clockwork City, but there's only so much I can determine in my... I see you have one of our perception tabulators. Continue your investigation and make sure that device gets into the hands of a Clockwork Apostle. Be careful. If you end up infused with a scarecrow, then everything you learn will be lost.
How dare you interrupt my vigil? What nonsense impels you to such a rash and impetuous action? You dare question the sacred duty that has been placed before me? I'll have you know What am I doing here? What is this place? I remember coming to the Clockwork City when a teleportation ritual went awry. I was looking for a way out when I noticed a strange portal appear in the radius. It called to me. Next thing I know, I'm standing guard over this empty field. I remember that you interrupted my vigil. If my attention wavers for even a moment, those crows will take advantage and strip this field to the ground. Leave me! There are secrets in the dark and the night is here!
You did well. Now return to the Clockwork City and let Darrow know what you learned.
You returned! I must admit, I wasn't sure you'd be able to do that. Do you have the perception tabulator? And what of Acolyte Varia? Were you able to locate her in there? Dead? Shadow Array? I suppose the perception tabulator will explain everything. I'll study it right away. In the meantime, take this. A little something for helping the Clockwork Apostles today.
Oh, hey, friend. Was hoping to see you again. Was just popping up for some fresh-ish air, and what do I find but the tangy smell of fresh meat? Looks like you've had some luck at the butcher's. Perfect. I can take that off your hands now. Gonna need to give it a good soak in that marinade before I can get dinner started. Come by later and I'll have something to thank you for all this good effort. I insist.
If I knew my...
All right, friends. The guest of honor has arrived. I've cooked up something special for you all. Soon to be favorites, I'm sure. For you, Kara, a mushroom-filtered meat stew. No more of that overwhelming metallic tang, I promise. And for you, Maurice, root liqueur marinated fabric chop neatly braised. Soon to put Slagtown on the culinary map. And finally, tuba beef, the crown jewel of my feast. Hand-fed Nick's fillets in a mushroom and root liqueur reduction.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
And for my newest friend, I have a special treat. I never would have been able to concoct any of these wonderful dishes without you. And you've clearly got an appreciation for food. So, I've conjured up a unique recipe to help you through your time in Clockwork City. I hope you enjoy it. Nothing too difficult, I promise. Most of the ingredients should be readily available in Clockwork City, so you shouldn't have to jump through any more hoops for a decent meal.
All right. Here goes.
Might need a little nip of that liquor after this. Delicious.
Hey, Bren, this is good. You did it.
Oh, my. There is a hint of home in this. Thank you.